The door was half broken and swayed when the wind pushed it. Dust hung in the air like a light fog. A thin mat lay on the bare, cracked floor, and an old woman curled herself on it as if the world was too heavy for her bones. Her brown Ankara dress was torn at the edges and stained with mud. Her hair was tangled. Her lips trembled even when she slept. A tall man stepped into the room with a small flashlight. 2 staff members stood behind him, whispering, "Sir, this house looks abandoned." The man moved closer. The beam touched the woman's face. He froze. "Mama? Mama Amaka?" His voice broke. "Do you remember me?" The woman's eyes fluttered. She tried to lift her head, but her hands shook. She saw the man and blinked, as if she was seeing a dream she had begged for and given up on. The man turned to his staff. "Call the ambulance. Now." His chest rose and fell fast. "Please, hurry." The wind pushed the door again. The thin mat rustled. The old woman's hand slid off the mat and touched the cold floor. She looked at the man and whispered a word that sounded like a memory. "David?" The siren was still far away when her eyes rolled back. 2 months earlier, the sky over Oshodi was a bright, honest blue. People shouted prices in the market. Hawkers waved drinks and biscuits at slow-moving cars. On a normal day, Mama Amaka would be in Mile 2 Market, counting bales of cotton wool, arguing in a friendly way with drivers, and telling stories about how God is kind to those who work hard. She was 65, but she moved like a strong tree in the wind, rooted, steady, and full of life. For more than 30 years, she sold cotton wool in bulk. Clean, white, soft, like small clouds. Hospitals bought from her. Shops bought from her. Young sellers came to learn from her because she knew how to make a fair profit without cheating. People called her Mama Wool. She would laugh and say, "I am only a widow who hates to sit at home." Her 2 children were her pride. Amaka and Joshua, both pilots, both brave, both kind. She had raised them after her husband died long ago. She sold more at night. She carried loads in the rain. She bought books and plane toys for them when they were little. When they grew, she paid for lessons, uniforms, exams. She would stand at the airport fence and watch planes cross the sky, whispering, "Fly high, my children, fly safe." But life can change like a market price board, flipping from good to gone in one breath. One night, no rain, no thunder. Mile 2 went silent and then bright, too bright. Fire licked the roof of her warehouse. It ate wood. It ate paper. It ate the only thing she had saved to keep her family strong, her cotton wool that looked like snow but burned like dry grass. She ran barefoot to the gate, screaming, "Open, open!" Men pulled her back as sparks jumped. "Mama, you can't go in," they begged. The heat pressed on her face like a hot iron. She twisted, trying to break free. "My work is inside. My life is inside." Her voice cracked. She dropped to her knees on the rough ground. Smoke curled into the sky like a dark snake. By morning, there was nothing but black ash, bent iron, and a smell that made people turn away. Neighbors came. Some hugged her. Some shook their heads. Some only watched. "Sorry, Mama Wool," they said. "God knows best." She nodded, like a person learning to walk again. She told herself, "It's only business. My children are alive. We will rebuild." So she held on to Amaka and Joshua. They carried her groceries, made tea, and hid their sadness when they saw the way she stared at empty shelves. They told jokes. They showed her photos from the cockpit. "Mama, see the clouds," Joshua said. "They look like your cotton wool." She smiled and tapped his ear. "You think I don't know?" Days grew long. For the first time in her life, she stayed home. She tried to sit, she tried to rest, but her hands kept looking for work. She folded and unfolded wrappers. She boiled water she did not need. She walked to the door and back, to the door and back, until her legs ached. "I was made to stand in a shop," she would whisper to the window, "not to watch the clock." Then came the second fire, this time not of wood, but of news. The radio voice was calm. The words were not. A plane had gone down over the ocean. Search teams were on the way. Names would be shared later. The street fell quiet. Phones buzzed like angry insects. Someone knocked on her door, then another. Then it was a chorus of hands and breath and bad eyes that did not know how to look at a mother. When the list came, it did not whisper. It shouted, Amaka, Joshua. The world went silent. Her heart did not. It thundered like a trapped drum. She rose slowly, like a person walking in water. She picked up the small plain toy from the shelf, the one Joshua gave her at 9 years old, and held it until her hand shook. She tried to scream, but sound hid behind her teeth. Her knees gave way, the toy dropped and broke. Some neighbors cried with her. Others leaned at their windows and said low words that cut like blade edges. She worked too hard. She refused to rest. God sees everything. Maybe the problem is her. The whispers grew teeth. The teeth grew long. Which? She did not argue. She did not have the strength. Bills grew. Debts came like weeds, fast and stubborn. House papers that once felt firm became thin. The landlord stopped knocking softly. One morning, a truck took her old bed. Another day, her cupboard. At last, even the small house slipped away. She moved to a tiny mud house at the edge of the community. The door did not close all the way. The roof leaked when the clouds got jealous. She had a mat and a thin wrapper and a pot that sang only when neighbors brought soup. She learned to sleep on the floor because there was nowhere else to sleep. She learned to listen to the night and pretend it was music. She learned that hunger could be quiet and grief could be loud. Every morning she woke before the sun and swept dust that came back to say hello. She tied her wrapper tighter and sat by the doorway, watching feet pass, the fast feet of people going to work, the slow feet of people going nowhere, the small feet of children playing with water sachets. Some children waved, some mothers pulled them away. Don't go near her, they warned. Don't talk. She wanted to die. She prayed to die. God, take me in my sleep, she whispered to the mat. Take me, so I don't have to count the cracks on this floor again. But every day, her eyes opened, and the cracks were still there, like small rivers on dry land. Then, one Saturday, a small crowd gathered in the open field near her house. A banner flapped in the breeze. Kindness, care, outreach, free checkups, food packs, school fees support. People lined up, laughing, clapping to the drum. A tall man in a simple white shirt spoke with calm power. My name is David Johnson, he said into the mic. We are here because kindness must live like air everywhere, for everyone. Children ran around with paper plates. Volunteers carried bags of rice and beans. A nurse checked a baby's fever. An old man got new glasses and cried because the world suddenly had edges again. A small boy, barefoot and curious, wandered to the mud house with the door that wouldn't stay closed. He pushed it gently and saw a woman on the floor, thin as a thread. He ran back to the field and tugged on a volunteer's sleeve. Auntie, he said, someone is sleeping like a stone. The volunteer called 2 others. Sir, she told the tall man in white, there is an old woman in a house nearby. She looks forgotten. Show me, the man said. They walked past the drum, past the queue for food, into the narrow path that smelled of smoke and damp earth. The boy skipped ahead and pointed. The door swayed and squeaked. A nightbird flew out and vanished into daylight. They stepped inside. The room was small, but the sadness inside it was big. The air held the taste of dust, old tears, and time. The flashlight beam found the mat, found the wrapper, found the face. The man stopped breathing for one long second. Mama, Mama Amaka, he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly, like old doors that still remember how to move. She stared at him, confused, then surprised, then afraid to hope. She reached out, and her fingers touched the air between them. He dropped to his knees, too shocked to care about dust on his clothes. It's me, he said, voice shaking. David, the boy from mile 2, the orphan who cleaned your shop after school, the one you fed with rice and stew when I had nothing. You paid my exam fees. You told me I was not a mistake. He swallowed hard. Mama, look at me. I came back. Something warm flickered behind her tired eyes. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry, and her lips cracked instead of forming words. Tears slid down the lines on her face and settled at the edge of her jaw. He turned, voice sharp now. Call the ambulance, bring water, clear the path. He took her hand. It felt light, like paper. "You are coming with me," he said. "Today, not tomorrow, not later." She blinked and moved her mouth. A single word escaped thin, but full of life. "David?" "Yes, Mama. I'm here." Outside, someone shouted that the ambulance was close. The siren started as a whisper and grew like a storm. People gathered at the doorway. The volunteer placed a hand on her chest and prayed under her breath. Mama Amaka's eyes rolled, then fixed on the ceiling. The room spun. A low sound rattled in her throat. Her fingers stiffened in David's hands. "No, no, stay with me," he begged. "Please." The siren wailed, tires stopped outside, boots hit the dirt. The stretcher knocked the doorframe as it entered. The medic checked her pulse. Another lifted her gently, careful with the bones that had held the world too long. They carried her out. The sun hit her face, and for the first time in months, she felt warm without pain. David walked beside the stretcher, one hand holding the edge, the other still holding her fingers. He leaned close to her ear and spoke softly, like a promise kept at last. "I won't lose you," he said. "Not again." Her lips moved, and a broken whisper fell between them. They said I killed them." David's eyes flashed anger, sorrow, love all at once. He squeezed her hand. "You gave life," he said. "You never took it." The ambulance doors opened, the stretcher slid in. The doors started to close. On the mat inside the mud house, the wind lifted the edge and let it fall again, as if the floor itself exhaled. The doors slammed, the siren screamed, and the dust in the small room settled, waiting to see if this day would end like all the others, or if the world had finally changed. The ambulance tore through traffic, siren wailing. David sat beside the stretcher, holding Mama Amaka's frail hand. "You're safe now, Mama," he whispered, though her eyes fluttered like someone caught between worlds. At the private hospital, nurses rushed her to a bright room overlooking an almond tree. The doctor's voice was calm. "Severe dehydration and malnourishment. We'll stabilize her." David stayed by her side all night, the hum of machines mixing with memories, him as a barefoot boy in mile 2, sweeping her shop, eating the meals she shared when he had nothing. By morning, color returned to her cheeks. She opened her eyes slowly. "David, is this really for me?" she asked, touching the clean blanket. "Yes," he smiled, "and I can afford it." Over soft pap, she told her story: the fire at mile 2, losing her children in the crash, the cruel whispers of witch, and the slow stripping away of her home, bed, and dignity until the floor became her only pillow. David listened without interrupting, his eyes burning. "Everything they took from you, we'll take back," he said. He called his team. "We rebuild her business bigger than before, clear her debts, get her the best care. She'll never sleep on a floor again." His operations lead didn't hesitate. This was the boss's voice when it was personal. By afternoon, a volunteer who had first found Mama Amaka ran into the room. "Sir, there's a crowd outside. Some came to thank you. Others are saying bad things. They're live streaming it." "What things?" David asked. "That she brought bad luck," she whispered. A stone clinked against the window, the word witch rising from the street below. The nurse quickly pulled the blinds. Hospital security moved in, and Tunde, David's right-hand man, was already on the phone. "PR team, get old photos, testimonies, everything she's done for the community. We drown this lie in the truth." Then a new voice spoke from the doorway. A woman in a plain suit, badge at her belt, stepped in with a police officer. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Inspector Chika. We need to speak with the patient. It's about the mile 2 fire. We have reason to believe it wasn't an accident." David stiffened. "Then talk to the real culprits." The inspector's gaze shifted to the bed. "For her safety, and for questions, we may need to take her in." Mama Amaka gripped her blanket, eyes wide. Outside, the crowd grew louder, boots stomping on the pavement. "She's not leaving here today," David said firmly. The police radio crackled. "Crowd moving. Repeat. Crowd moving." Before anyone could react, the fire alarm blared. The almond tree outside shook violently in the wind, and shouts echoed from the hallway. "Fire! Fire!" someone yelled. David turned to Mama Amaka. "Stay with me, Mama. Whatever this is, they won't take you." But even as he said it, the smell of smoke began to creep under the door. The fire alarm's wail bounced off the hospital walls, sharp and urgent. The smell of smoke thickened, seeping under the door in lazy curls that turned darker by the second. Nurses shouted orders in the corridor. Boots thudded. Someone wheeled a cart so fast it slammed into the wall with a metallic bang. Outside, the crowd's chanting broke into scattered screams as panic replaced curiosity. David moved quickly, lowering the hospital bed's rails. "Mama, we're leaving." "Now." The police officer stepped forward. "Sir, protocol is to keep patients until the fire is assessed." David's eyes cut to him. "She's not dying in a smoke-filled room while you assess anything." The officer hesitated, then stepped back as David slid his arms under Mama Amaka. She was lighter than he remembered, her bones like delicate sticks wrapped in fabric. "Hold on to me," he said, and felt her fingers clutch his shirt. Tunde burst through the doorway with 2 security guards. "Sir, the West Wing is clear, but the crowd outside is pressing toward the ambulance bay. Some are filming, some are throwing things." "Then we don't use the ambulance bay," David snapped. "We go through the service corridor." They moved fast, weaving past confused patients and medics, dragging oxygen tanks. The hallway lights flickered. A nurse rushed past with a crying child in her arms. Halfway down the corridor, a side door burst open. 2 men David didn't recognize stepped inside, eyes darting. One held up a phone, live streaming. The other pointed straight at Mama Amaka. "There, that's her, the witch they're hiding." Before the words could spread further, Tunde shoved the man with the phone back through the door and slammed it shut. "Keep moving," he barked. They reached the service exit, but the outside air was no safer. Smoke drifted from somewhere beyond the building, but it wasn't from any hospital wing. They could see the almond tree standing untouched. David realized with a sharp twist in his gut. The smoke isn't from a fire in here. Someone lit something outside. From the narrow alley beyond the service door, voices rose. "Bring her out." She cursed her children. "Justice." Mama Amaka buried her face against his chest. "They'll kill me," she whispered. "No," David said firmly. "They won't even touch you," he nodded to Tunde. "Call the convoy." Within minutes, 2 black SUVs roared into the alley, engines deep and steady. Security men spilled out, forming a wall between the mob and the hospital's side exit. Cameras flashed, angry faces pushed forward, but the guards didn't move. David slipped into the SUV with Mama Amaka, shutting the door just as a rock hit the tinted window. She flinched, but he took her hand. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "To a place no one can find you," he said, "until we take back your name." As the convoy pulled away, one thought burned in his mind. Someone wanted her destroyed, not just in reputation, but for good, and he intended to find out who. The convoy sliced through the streets of Lagos like a black arrow, the SUV's tinted windows swallowing the chaos they left behind. Inside, Mama Amaka sat pressed against David, her fingers cold despite the warm evening. The roar of the engines was steady, but David could feel her trembling through his jacket. Outside, the city moved in a blur, hawkers dragging their wares out of the road, Danfo buses squeezing into tight corners, streetlights blinking to life as the sky deepened to a burnt orange. "We'll be there soon," David murmured, though he knew she wasn't asking. He was saying it for himself as much as for her. The lead SUV turned down a narrow lane, lined with tall walls and gates painted in muted colors. They stopped at a black steel gate that slid open without a sound. Inside was a private compound, high fences topped with security spikes, floodlights, and cameras that turned like watchful eyes. The car stopped in front of a 2-story white building with a veranda that wrapped around the front. Guards opened the door before David could reach for the handle. "This is one of my safe houses," David said as he helped her out. "No one knows you're here except me, Tunde, and the security detail." Her eyes swept over the manicured garden, the smooth stone path, the steady hum of a generator somewhere in the back. "Safe house?" she repeated softly, as if the words belonged in another life. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender. A warm light filled the living room, where soft couches sat around a glass coffee table. A basket of fresh fruit rested on the counter in the adjoining kitchen. "You'll stay here," David told her. "You'll have a nurse, a cook, And anything else you need. No one comes in without my permission. She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "This is more than kindness. It's a debt," he answered. "One I've been waiting to repay for years." Tunde came in from the hallway, holding a folder. "Sir, we've started digging. We already know the crowd outside the hospital wasn't organic. About 30% were locals. But the rest? Paid agitators. Someone's been pushing the witch narrative online for weeks." David's jaw tightened. "Who? We're tracing the accounts now," Tunde replied. "But," he hesitated, glancing at Mama Amaka. "Say it," David pressed. "Some of the payments came from an account linked to Mile 2 Traders Association." Mama Amaka's head snapped up. "That's the union I paid dues to for years." David's mind raced. "And who runs it now?" Tunde opened the folder, flipping to a page with a printed photo. "His name is Chief Gabriel Arawolo. Took over after you lost the warehouse." Mama Amaka's eyes darkened. "Gabriel." She spat the name like it tasted bad. "He used to beg me for stock on credit. I carried him for years." David looked at her. "Why would he come after you now?" She shook her head. "Because when I still had the warehouse, people respected me more than him. I had bigger contracts, better connections. Some men can't stand a woman doing better." David sat back, piecing it together. "So the fire wasn't just bad luck. He wanted you out of the way." Tunde nodded grimly. "And now he's keeping the story alive to make sure you can't come back." David's voice dropped into something cold. "He made 2 mistakes. 1 thinking you're alone. 2 thinking I'll let this go." That night, after dinner, Mama Amaka sat on the veranda, wrapped in a soft shawl. The garden was lit with small path lights, and the air smelled faintly of rain. David stepped outside with 2 mugs of tea, handing one to her. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She took a sip before answering. "You've already done more than enough, David. You can ask me anything. When the fire happened, did you ever suspect him?" She stared at the steam rising from her cup. "I didn't want to. It's one thing to lose your livelihood to accident, another to believe someone you helped could destroy it. But deep down? Yes. I suspected. He was the only one who benefited immediately. He took over my suppliers the very next week." David leaned against the railing. "Then we'll make him talk." The next morning, Tunde arrived with an update. "Sir, we've got a location. He's holding a traders' meeting tomorrow night in Surulere. Small gathering, about 20 people. David looked at Mama Amaka. "Do you want to face him?" Her fingers tightened around the mug she was holding. "If I face him, I want the truth in front of everyone." "Then that's exactly what we'll do," David said. The following evening, the plan was set. David's security team went in first, posing as delivery staff, bringing drinks for the meeting. Tiny wireless mics were placed around the room. Tunde was stationed in a van outside, monitoring the feed. When David and Mama Amaka arrived, the meeting was already underway. Gabriel Arawolo stood at the head of the table, wearing a white agbada embroidered with gold. He was in the middle of boasting about new supplier contracts when he saw them. The room went silent. "Ah," Gabriel said, forcing a smile. "The great Mama Wool. To what do we owe this?" "Surprise?" Mama Amaka stepped forward, her voice calm but steady. "To ask you a question. Did you burn my warehouse?" The men around the table exchanged glances. Gabriel laughed, but it was thin and nervous. "What nonsense. Why would I?" David cut in, tossing a folder onto the table. "Because the insurance payout went to a shell company you own. Because 3 of the men seen that night work for you now. And because you've been paying people to call her a witch online." Gabriel's eyes flickered. "This is defamation." "No," David said, leaning in. "This is evidence, and in about 30 seconds, it's going live to every media outlet in Lagos." Tunde's voice came over the earpiece. "Sir, the feed's ready." Mama Amaka didn't raise her voice, but the room seemed to lean in anyway. "Gabriel, I fed you when you had nothing. I carried your debts when no one else would. And this is how you repay me?" For a moment, Gabriel's mask slipped, his jaw clenched, and his eyes narrowed. "You stood in my way," he hissed. "You took the contracts I deserved. I made sure you'd never rise again." The room erupted, some men shouting in shock, others moving away from him. The mics caught every word. David smiled coldly. Thank you for making that so easy. Tunde's voice came again. It's out, sir. Every major station has it. Social media's on fire. People are calling for his arrest. Within minutes, police sirens wailed outside. Officers stormed in, cuffs in hand. Gabriel tried to protest, but the recording was already evidence enough. As they led him away, Mama Amaka stood tall. For the first time in years, her name was no longer a whisper of pity or suspicion. It was strength again. David turned to her. It's over, Mama. You're free. She looked at him, eyes shining, and said, No, David, this is just the beginning. By morning, Lagos was buzzing with one story. Mama Amaka's name cleared. The video of Chief Gabriel's confession spread like harmattan fire. Whispers of which were gone, replaced with praise and apology. At the safe house, David closed his phone and turned to her. Are you ready? She smiled faintly. I've been ready for 30 years. The first stop was the hospital for a final checkup. Strong heart, steady blood, strict diet. Then David drove her not to the mud house, but to a furnished flat in a secure estate. The bedroom held a thick mattress, soft pillows, and a framed photo of Amaka and Joshua in their pilot uniforms. No more floor, David said. Her eyes glistened. Then let me call you son. He knelt. And let me call you mother. Work began quickly. A new building rose in Mile. 2 market white walls, wide gates, and a sign, Mama Wool Distribution Hub, founded in honor of Amaka, Joshua Scholarship Trust. On opening day, traders gathered. David cut the ribbon, then stepped aside for her. I fell, not by accident, but by wickedness, she said into the mic. I slept on the floor, but kindness found me. Today I forgive. Today I start again. Applause shook the street. One boy pushed forward. It was Chidi, the barefoot child who had first found her. He held a mango and 2 bananas. For you, he said. David smiled. From today, we add 10 market children to the Chidi Education Fund. The hub hired widows, single fathers, and apprentices. Orders rolled in, and Mama Wool once again meant fair prices and honest weight. Then came an invitation. National Conference on Kindness. Humanity keynote speaker. Mama Amaka. The hall was full students, traders, CEOs, nurses, and cameras. She stepped to the podium in a deep blue wrapper. I was once envied, she began. I sold cotton wool in bulk. My 2 children were pilots. Then everything fell, my warehouse burned. My children died, and people called me a witch. I slept on the floor, but a boy I once fed found me. He carried me to safety. He gave me back my name and my work. She paused. Kindness is not a loan. It is a seed. It may sleep for years, but it always returns. If you meet someone on the floor, be the person who says, no more floor. The hall rose in a standing ovation. People cried. Some traders came forward to apologize. Outside, David handed her a folder. Inside, the Mama Wool Foundation, funding scholarships, market school programs, and widow support. This is too much, she whispered. It's only the beginning, he said. That night, back in her flat, she lay on her bed, not in fear, but in peace. The pillow was soft. The air was still. Outside, the almond tree tapped against the window like gentle applause. She slept on the floor every day until a billionaire gave her back a bed, a name, and a future. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.